I thinking of, who I'd want to honor. Of course, I'd start with my mother, and then the matriarchs in my family. I had the honor of spending a good amount of time with both of my grandmothers, my aunts, my female cousins, my sister, my daughter, and really all the partners that I've had. So I've been deeply impacted by, I would go so far as to say, all the women that I've met along my journey, because they've provided me with a reflection of where I want to go as a man and why I'd like to go in that direction. Yes, for myself and getting to know myself, but also in wanting to show up to create a space for change, but from an authentic place. So I definitely just really want to take this moment and honor them, honor what they brought to my life, honor the contrast, the confusion at times, the clarity, the tenacity, and the depth of soul, be it the depth of the pain that I've noticed many of them hadn't been able to speak to, but also the grace in which, they try to navigate all that, and then the beauty that they brought regardless of anything that was going on in their lives. It's very inspirational to me. So that's where I would start with.
Beautiful. Oh.
Oh, thank you.
Who would like to go next?
I would love to honor Mother Earth for literally taking care of all of our family members, all of the men and women and everybody that's ever lived here on this planet. And that honoring her in the way that she's given us so much. And we as a species have given so little back in return. And at the same time, that's all changing now, because so many of us are feeling this feminine principle in us, and we're embodying it and self-actualizing it. And I truly feel like that's going to result in us being proper stewards of this garden that this earth has gifted us with and allowed us to inherit. So, I got to start with Mother Earth. She is it. And then obviously every other feminine force in my life has always been a reflection of that part of my own awareness that I maybe haven't been as synced up with, but that has inspired me to continue living my life in a way so that I'm progressively syncing up towards it.
Oh, beautiful.
Oh, brother.
Well, I'd like to share something, just that I'd like to thank my mother for showing me the extremes of what it is to meet a woman, from the loving to the hysterical, really, the total spectrum there of the feminine, to feel that, embrace that, and know it. And then one of the most beautiful women I've met was this woman on a travel to Sedona, where she was the first to initiate me into between sex and love. She was a real earth mother, and showed me the depth of what true lovemaking was, and that true connection. And I never had that growing up in a kind of culture where you're shown icons of women, and they're not real women as far as the commercial industry. They're caricatures. And then to meet a real woman and embrace that was a transformative relationship, and she's still in my life, and beautiful and loving. So thank you for allowing that. Yeah.
I think you've touched on some important principles, Alan. Your internet was cutting a little bit, but I would love, once we finish this part, I really want to explore some of those themes you've talked about, because they're really, really important. Who would like to go next?
I wanted to say a couple of things that Seth already touched on as far as Mother Earth. One of the things that I'm seeing involving the out of balance of the masculine feminine energy is our relationship with Earth. And like Seth, I see that as we become more in balance with Mother Earth, we become more in balance with our community and our individual relationships. I personally had a very toxic upbringing, and the advantage of that was seeing the negativity, and so it was easy to spot. It would almost be like if all my friends were alcoholics, it would be easy for me to see that there's a path I don't want to go down. So the benefit there was, wow, there's some toxicity here, which actually propelled me on my path. Studying different cultures and different religions really assisted me quite a bit in finding people in my life now. Like my current beloved is just the most amazing woman I've ever met. Nina Starsong is the woman that introduced me to this group, dear friend of mine. My grandmother was an unbelievably powerful representation of balanced divine feminine, as was my grandfather. And the two of them together really were more of an impact to me, seeing them in a relationship, than just the feminine part of it. Seeing how the feminine and masculine work together was extremely influential for me. But like you said, Ezyriah, all the women in my life have played such a valuable, important part. Not to the least of which are my three daughters, which once I became more aware and awoke, realized how valuable they were in mirroring for me their femininity, allowing me to bring balance and harmony into the whole. And what an exciting relationship that has been with my daughters. Some of you probably know my youngest daughter and I opened a restaurant together 13 years ago. So we not only spent time growing up, but as adults, we got to work with each other on a daily basis. And really incredible experience with all my children, all my daughters. I've got three daughters. So
Wow.
thank you.
Thank you. My God. Aho.
Aho.
I would like to honor the mother and just the creators of all of us, for I bow down to what is being done right now, and that's clearing a lot of the old ancestral lines. I know my mother came from my departed grandmother, God bless her in heaven, who was one of the coldest, cruelest, hardest women you could ever possibly meet, from a lineage that could knock your socks off. And my mom decided to do something different. She decided to raise two men with the highest level of love, compassion, generosity, kindness, that really shifted the lineage before her, and what we're all standing in front of our own respectable masculine and feminine energies. And I bow to her because I see what she's done for me in honoring our ancestral line, and to bring forth even a greater love that I have in my personal life of my beloved, who holds me in the greatest accountability for who I am, who holds me in every little step of the way, that I bow down to that, because the firmness of the energies that I feel holds us in a way that we can respectable, be as authentic as possible and integral as possible, is really the leading edge of what I'm so blessed from the sacred feminine divine energy, because they see, feel, and hear in an energy that personally for me has awoken me to levels that I've never seen in my life. And that has taken me from each relationship, and within each relationship, I feel that evolution has grown stronger until my beloved and soulmate has come forward to really hold me as the man that I am. And I bow on that because she's a mother as well. And I find the creator of all mothers, the divine mothers, I need to just honor that, because without that, we would not be here present. So I just want to honor the mothers of all of us, and the one that really brought me up in the highest love that I could be most blessed with.
Beautiful.
Oh,
Aho, brother.
yeah.
Brendan, Liam?
I grew up in a very damaged, defined feminine. So my mom raised me as a mostly kind of a single mom. She had some partners that didn't last, but my upbringing was very rough. But at the same time, that seeing that shadow that I was surrounded with, and then coming to the place I am with my mom now, where we've healed so much and we reconciled so much, it really was a beautiful transformation for both of us to come to that place of healing with each other. And we're still continuing that journey and discovering the depths that we can expand ourselves in that healing. And I mean, there was a lot there that was very hard for me, but I want to honor her willingness to move forward into that space of healing. And I know that healing that within her and then healing that within me also helps every other person that I come in contact with. And there's been so many amazing women that I've met along the way who, through my intention to expand my consciousness and to grow spiritually, come across and have these amazing moments with, and those moments that truly expand your soul. And even if it's just a glimpse of that person in that moment, and maybe they're not totally balanced, but they step into themselves and you step into yourselves in that moment and you see what's truly possible. So I want to honor all the women that I've come across that has shared that with me, because when we embody our fullness, whether it's the divine masculine or the divine feminine, it really invites the other to step into that space fully as well. And that's really where the healing and the magic occurs. And then there's been true cases of magic that I've come across in that space that really is beyond words. There's been women who's held that space of love so powerfully that it shifted my beingness, being in their presence, when I was finally able to let go of my guard. And that ability to hold that space that allowed me to let go of my guard from my wounded upbringing was really essential in my transformation. And I couldn't have gotten here without those moments and those individuals who were willing to hold that space for me.
Amen.
Oh, brother.
Wow. Aho, brother.
So I'd like to honour my mum, who is very strong, but she's also very, very gentle. And she managed to put up with my dad, which is testament to her strength. And when I tuned into this before, I thought then of my gran and my nan, who I just like particularly remember when I was like about 9 years old. Just lots of memories that came about them. And my sister, who I just spoke to today, Jen, my new partner. Well, been together for a year, and she's incredible. And she's oh my god, Zissis had the honor to meet her last week, and since we've gotten together, yeah, it's been a real healing journey, and I've been through the biggest transformation I've ever been through, and it's thanks to her empathy, but also her intelligence as well, to comprehend the things that I talk about, and also to hold me in that space and do what only women at the moment really, apart from very few males, and I feel like Zissis is one of them. But one who's really able to hold like a crying man, and just to like reassure him that everything's going to be okay. That's what women do best, isn't it? And I think it's all getting flipped on its head. So they're the strong ones, and they're like the Prince Charmings in the Disney story. But then like we can rescue them once they've rescued us, I think. But we have to do it in like, I feel like the men have a bit of a burden, and we have like a trickier like obstacle course to navigate. And it's like the right side of the brain, sorry, the left side of the brain. So it's all like intellectual, it's to do with words. And I feel like the women, like inside, they're solid, and awakened women, like they're like the first to awaken, aren't they? And then, you know, like in the Matrix where Thingamabob, Trinity, kisses Neo, and then he's out of the Matrix. So it was after receiving the kiss that then he was awake in the Matrix. And so then after they've given us the kiss, then we can like, you know, like what Neo sees, he can seize the ones and the zeros. So he's like kind of like the architect. He can break through the physical barriers. I think that's the man's role. Yeah. So I hope. Thanks for
things that have been dormant and are awakening. So I honor all women, the ones I've mentioned, and all women that are walking their path in their divine feminine and are looking for strong men. And this is something that I've heard, and I'd love for you guys to comment. They're looking for strong, conscious men, but they don't see any. The world does not have strong, conscious men. So consequently, what women need to do is step into their masculine, the divine masculine energy, in order to, you know, have them hold themselves, or have other women hold themselves, because there isn't that strength in the divine masculine. I'd love to get your thoughts on what I just shared.
Well, it's not in the media, the divine masculine, but it's here with us. You know, if we're looking for commercial archetypes that have dictated our conditioning, that's why we're in the mess we're in, because we haven't looked to each other. This is a beautiful gathering where you're helping me realize, you know, the honoring of the masculine, and the masculine is not one thing from the variety of people here. It's anything we want to make it. So we have to honor ourselves, I think, is what I'm getting from what you asked, and then be out in the world as archetypes ourselves.
What does it mean?
That's how I see it.
Thank you, Alan. What does it mean to be masculine? What does it mean to embody your masculinity?
Yeah.
Can I talk to that?
Please.
First of all, I want to piggyback on something you said, that women are looking for strong, conscious men, and in absence of that, they become the strong, conscious masculine themselves. That concept is talked about in many books. The one I like the most, Robert Bly wrote, Iron John. Of this exact same situation and how we got into it, which is several chapters. We don't have to talk about that now, but the way out is the answer to your question. The way out is, as Alan said, become that conscious man, that strong man, and what that looks like is the man that provides safety and provides security. Now there's more to it, but we start there. When we are men that create the container where women feel secure and they feel safe. Now they're free to let down some of their guard and be more of their authenticity. And the more safety and security there becomes in that container, the more authentic the feminine can be. Now that also holds true within ourselves. When we create the safety and security within ourselves, both our divine feminine and divine masculine then can fully mature in us, and we become more balanced, whole human beings. And that to me is the big picture, but the first step is providing security and providing safety. And if you think about it, how many men really do that or even know how to do that? I'm not talking about just physical safety, but it starts there. But how many men provide maybe financial safety and security? They provide physical safety and security, but in relationship, their feminine counterpart doesn't feel emotionally safe. She can't verbalize because she knows she'll be put down emotionally or mentally. So we need, as men, to provide security in a physical, a mental, emotional, and a spiritual place, in a spiritual aspect, in order to truly provide safety and security. That's step one. Thank you for hearing me.
Brilliant, David. I couldn't agree more with your comments. And I would add to that is embodying the sense of action associated with it. And that's something personally that I've lacked in embodying my masculinity, though I've been aware, you know, imagine being given a gift of awareness, of a higher awareness, you know, and now when you're given this gift of higher awareness, it demands that you create action associated with it. That's the aspect of manifestation, as it were. And you know, what I've learned in the last 3 weeks to a month and a half, through various examples, through various representations, is I've had this feeling, sensation, let's say, of an individual, a male who is distorted, who is in a way a shark, you know, in some way, shape, or form. And I see that a mile coming, but yet I choose to see the goodness in that individual. Well, sharks will be what they are. They will hunt and they will kill and they will do what they need to do. And, you know, me having that philosophy is naive, because in the end, I'm the one that gets hurt, right? So what I've learned is as this awareness comes into my being, the ability to act immediately, regardless of how, well, for me, it was lack of courage, if I were honest with you, courage into moving forward, whatever the pieces may be, meaning, you know, whether this person, whether this male, whether this female is not going to like the response, or, you know, we're going to have an awkward conversation, or, you know, there are other consequences associated with it. But in the end, it does serve me, and it does require me to move forward into action. That's the resolution. So, and I think more, I think, and as I've been aware of that within myself, and as I've been embodying that within myself, deep within my chakras, you know, within the, you know, the base and the base chakra, as I embody that being of masculinity within myself, there's a sense of power that comes with that. And maybe it, you know, for myself, I didn't want to embody that power because I had a sense of responsibility. I don't know. This is something that I'm still experimenting with or understanding more fully. But when you embody your fullness, as it were, as a male and a masculinity, that action is the consequence of what is required. And the safety and security is 100% all of that, David. So, well
said.
I think there's also a difference between just what it means to be masculine, right? Everybody can look at a male and understand what it means to be masculine, but there's a difference when it comes to embodiment of the divine masculine. right? If you're moving towards the divine masculine, you're going to hold yourself to higher principles, because the whole idea is you're moving towards the fullness of the embodiment of that higher self, that higher being, so that you can bring out the best of who you are. So there is a differentiation between just the basic masculine understanding and then that evolution in consciousness. So what does it mean to be divine masculine? And I think, David, you hit on it when you said it also embodies the element of feeling safe when it comes to somebody's emotions, right? So you hold that safety and security around basically all these principles. Something that I've learned along the way to kind of evaluate myself is the willingness to surrender all thoughts and ideas and impulses around my masculinity that maybe I enacted out of habit. And so I take this and I surrender it over to the divine, and I ask for input in return to show me what that higher embodiment would act, would behave, would think, would emote in that place. And so whatever it is that I'm thinking, whatever it is that I'm examining, so there's if we get into sexuality, for instance, there's the movement of the sacred sexuality. And there's all those that have many different opposing beliefs on what that is. Like, it's okay if you do this. It's not okay if you do this. It's okay if it's consensual. It's not okay if it's this way. And there's the matter of porn. There's a matter of all these different things. I don't think there's any one right answer for everybody, because everybody is coming from their own energetic standpoint. But when you really examine whether I'm in integrity or not, and I'm in divine alignment or not, you can take that energy of the action, the energy of whatever is going on in that moment, and surrender it over to the divine. And you know it's in alignment or not, because if it's not, the energy changes and shifts. And suddenly you're in a different space with a different understanding. And so if you are, for instance, watching porn, it's like, is this divinely aligned? No matter what you're thinking or telling yourself it is, and whether your excuses for your behavior is going on, if you are willing to shift and to step up into your higher alignment, surrender that over in that space and really ask for honest feedback from Creator to show you what is true in that moment, what is really true for you in that moment.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Brendan. There's so much truth in that.
And if I could just piggyback on what I appreciate, Brandon, is really raising it into the divine masculine, because I feel that is the fullness of our expression. By bringing the divine virtues through us, and by living that, and by being that through the kindness, through the generosity, through our integrity, and most important, through being through our heart and love, because that divine love is within us, and each of us are expressions of that. And many of us that are not acting in the fullness of it sometimes comes from a deficiency of it. And it's important that we recognize it, because we are a conduit of it. It's coming through us, and allowing that energy to be us in the expression of it, I feel, is the magic that we get to serve right now in each and every one, because terms, labels, stories, energies are all dissolving right now. Yet we know that divinity within us is rising in our highest vibration, in the light body that we are, in our respectable divine masculine and divine feminine. So I appreciate the divinity brought into it, because it does what I believe is it brings in our most authentic realm by the virtues that we get to be by here on this beautiful planet.
Mm. Just want to say something. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
To be honest, really, I never identified with masculine, definitely didn't identify with feminine. I didn't know what any of those things were. I was just me. So I always resisted putting who I am into a box. of masculine or whatever that would mean. So I didn't have any definitions. I mean, my father was a great guy, a role model of sorts, but that's always been my resistance. I mean, yes, I know what the divine feminine is and it's beautiful. I just didn't know what I was in relationship to that as a definition. I know who I am on a spiritual level, but this is sort of, I mean, it's a beautiful conversation, but this is sort of the resistance I'm having actually here in defining. I mean, each one of us are beautiful examples of something that may be different from the feminine, but maybe you can help me understand that need for categorization in a sense, like of who I mean. I think it's great because it needs to be talked about. I just don't have a way of relating to it as a thing. You know, I try not to define myself, so maybe just throwing that out there.
Alan, could I ask a question? Do you feel like you're fully embodied in your body?
You know, I'm much more embodied when I'm with a woman. I have to say that, you know, or working out. I probably could be more embodied. I can tend to be a little intellectual and mental. So yeah, being embodied. I mean, I love being embodied. So I embrace that. But yeah, no, thank you for that question. I think I could feel that sense of embodiment more.
Right. And because, you know, my sense is the more I embody, and I've witnessed others where, you know, they're somewhere up here, you know, they're seeing this body, but they're somewhat disconnected from the body, whether be it male or female, whatever it may be. And the more you fully drop into your body, further into your body, the more I think your expression of your physical being manifests. This is what I was alluding to earlier, because certainly I was raised, influenced by amazing, beautiful women. I barely had any male influences in my life. So consequently, from my perspective, you know, I'm quite familiar with feminine energy, right? But yet I look distinctly male, right?
Yeah.
It's the embodiment of that masculinity energetically now that becomes more of the grounding, as it were. And that's really what I would offer to you as well from my perspective.
Yeah, no, that's good because I do love being the embodiment and dropping into the body. I just don't know if I would put a label on that as
Right.
as something. But I think that's good advice to keep dropping more and more in because that's why we're here. We're here to be embodied. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
You know, I would love to try to bring a broader picture, a greater observational viewpoint to this conversation and kind of go back to women, right? These divine women are looking for strong, embodied divine men, and there seems to be more of these women than there are men. Let's look at the root cause of why that may be. I know when I go into my own perception of self and reality and get beyond the labels, the definitions, the caricatures, the duality that I perceive between my own self-awareness and this greater awareness that's allowing me to perceive reality in the first place, I feel that we are a species that has generationally evolved with such a limited understanding of what this source is that's offering us the ability to live. And women are waking up to it and they're evolving into it. Awake women, you could say, we'll give it that label, because they're able to feel at a capacity and a depth that is more innate than most men. Most men are going to resist feeling because we've been so conditioned not to feel in this life and even previous lives. So, you know, and ancestrally. So it's almost like passed down through our genetics to be a man and be strong and not feel. But the root cause of the issue is more like we are a species that has lost touch with its own source to the degree that we're not living harmoniously with this planet. And so that's bringing us all to a point where we're like, many of us know that we cannot continue to keep living the way we are, not just from an environmental and ecological standpoint of the external circumstances that are being caused, but from an internal perspective, we can feel that something is out of alignment. And so women, awake women, are awakening to this quicker because they can feel it. They're much more harmonized to these predominant feminine energies that are naturally occurring, you could say, in this planet. Whereas a lot of masculinity and a lot of the influence on current masculinity has to do with society, has to do with the cultural influences of a patriarchal society that for the most part is just smashing and running around and crushing things without mindfulness or heartfulness for the realities of why they're doing that. So by getting back in touch from an individual perspective, kind of like what Alan's saying, you know, I feel like the first steps are, whether you're a man or a woman, doesn't make any difference, but choosing to get in touch with the essence of what is allowing us to exist in the first place and really habituating that, making a habit out of that, then suddenly we begin to experience ourselves in a much more holistic sense. We just naturally become aware that we are so much more than masculine or feminine. And that process alone enables us to step into an embodiment that is natural and naturally occurring and already there. So I want to just say that, and I feel like it's that individual return to source that, if prioritized, allows men and women to step into their fullness and become more attractive to anybody and anything. You know, it creates more coherence and harmony within ourselves that then translates into how we interact with others on this world and create a healthier, happier, more loving, joyous place to live.
What does that look like, Seth, on a day-to-day, moment-by-moment basis?
For me, it looks like it's a process of constantly becoming aware of what I was unaware of. So in this life, there's been all this conditioning that has happened as a result of the influence of modern society, right? And so, but that's secondary to, deep down, I can feel that there's an energy that's causing my heart to beat. That's, you know, this innate intelligence in my body that is way more intelligent than I am. So anytime the influence of something that is not in alignment with this innate intelligence that's in my being comes up, I get better and better each time of realizing, like, okay, that's not actually me. That's the influence of something external. Whereas me, what I really am, is this force that is unchanging for the most part. It's always there. It's very dependable. It's very strong. It's very solid. But when I allow the conditioning or the influence of the modern world to dictate or determine my thought process or my feeling process, then I'm removed from it. So by practicing becoming aware and making that a priority, constantly feeling my heartbeat, breathing, getting into a state of heart-brain coherence and sustaining it, I start to become aware of the parts of myself that are unaware. And the more I do that, the more I practice, the better I get at catching these blind spots or these points that maybe I've unknowingly allowed myself to be conditioned into. So it's a process of refinement, a progressive realization of a worthy ideal. And to me, a worthy ideal is not what society has to offer. It's this life force that's offering me the ability to be in this body that to me is a priority.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
I would just add, Seth, I mean, the other way I look at it is becoming a clear channel to be able to receive. And so what does that mean? For me, means I have to look at my blocks, internal blocks that prevent me from receiving, whether it be a conditioning, whether it being programming, whether it being ancestral lineage, you know, and some of it's quite nuanced, right? Like it's really nuanced. So the ability to have a clear channel to be able to receive source or becoming source is the ability to heal. That's been my big dream, is to find ways that collectively we as men support other men, and to allow them to heal in the way they did. When Iron John was written, there was this huge movement in the late 80s or early 90s, if you remember, Dave, where there was these men that would go into the wild supporting each other and becoming, animalistic in them, finding their animalistic and finding their brothers in that way. And it was a great movement, but there wasn't any follow through associated. From my perspective, I'm not being judgmental. I'm just looking at, and I think there's something that was something very beautiful and tangible when that was created, because that created the awakening for men to be and to empower themselves. But there's much, much deeper levels that all men need to dive into, which is courageous work and the ability for us as men that have either gone through it or going through it to hold those men that are going through it becomes really paramount in order to heal men.
Yeah. There's so much subtle conditioning that for the most part we're unaware of, because we're so used to perceiving things in a certain way. It's almost like we've become habituated into perceiving things in a very materialistic way. And the essence of what we're really trying to learn or connect to isn't as obvious as the way we were most accustomed to perceiving things. So it's this process of being reacclimated to our heartbeat and the energy that's allowing all this to happen, that allows these subtleties that cause these blocks that we might not be aware of to become more obvious, allow us to become more aware of them. And it's in doing that they have less power over us, so that they have less ability to block us up and prevent us from being a clear channel, like you said.
I completely agree with everything that you just said and the way you presented it. I would also like to add that for me, I also see it as important to have the willingness to surrender all that you're currently carrying. So it doesn't really work if you're holding on to these ideas and these beliefs, or the past, or the pains, or whatever society says. If you're still holding on to this, and you're trying to ask for something new, there's nowhere for that to land. And for me, it's like, it's similar for you in the way that, how does that look for me? I hold this awareness of the divine around me and within me at all times. I recognize the divine in every little nuance of what I am observing and what I am feeling. And so when I move through the day and I am noticing as an empath where my energy is and how my energy is feeling, I will notice as I say something or as I think something, how my energy shifts. Does it fold in? Does it expand out? And if there's even like a slightest shift in that space, I'm paying attention to it. What is that? And why is that? And so then I dive into that moment in order to re-experience it, redefine it, restructure it into a more aligned space. And so that's what I do when I move throughout my day. And my intention is to continuously step into a more expanded, more aligned, more embodied version of myself. And holding that intention and doing those actions is what gets me further and further down the path.
Gosh, I want to cry. I'm like smiling ear to ear inside. I can't even smile enough, because that's you really just put it into perspective. It's that intention. It's that progressive realization of this deeper intention that, when committed to and prioritized, allows this evolutionary process to unfold through us. So, God, thank you.
Brendan, from a practical perspective, the work that you're talking about is very nuanced and very delicate work from my understanding. And so my awareness, as I'm aware of these things, I don't always get it right. meaning I'll go back into that emotion, that state where I was, and I can't even put a label to it. I can't even create an emotion or a state associated with it. Sometimes that takes time for it to catch up to what I've already sensed, right? And, that's important to note as men are doing this work, or women doing this work, that sometimes that does take time for it to fully embody and to put something to it and work it in the capacity and to mold it in the way that it needs to be molded.
Absolutely. I mean, if you're having an emotion that's so intense that it overwhelms you and overshadows everything else, that you don't even know where to begin, that's the point where you have to do what you can to break that hold on yourself. And sometimes if I am going through something that is that intense, I just have to set myself back a little bit. And that's when I pray. That's when I reach out to the divine and say, help me with this thing that I'm feeling and I can't break through. And I might take a nap to break myself out of whatever that is. And when I wake up from that just 20-minute nap, I will be reset in a way that I can re-examine whatever it is I'm going through.
That's a great point. And I want to ask all of you, and just raise your hands. When you were overwhelmed, how many of you all asked for help, either within the divine or if someone close to you? Right. So you get a sense of that. I think there's a lot of, I mean, maybe it's a distortion in my view, but the sense of pride in carrying these things and battling these things, because they're not anybody else's but my own. So I'll deal with them, right? It's all mine, instead of maybe sharing them with somebody and asking for help in that way. But thank you for that, Brendan.
Is that possibly the sense of the old masculine popping up? So that pride is, I'm going to do everything myself. I'm going to handle this.
Absolutely it is. That's the old conditioning. That's the awareness, right? That's the awareness of saying, hey, when you're able to share that and let go, more comes in, as you said earlier, right? Absolutely it is.
I just really quick, I'd like to say for the people watching this, the men who are watching this, the viewers, like, it takes a lot to admit that it's not all me and I need help. But that's what we're kind of doing here. We're creating a safe space to show, like, look, if you're stuck, if you need help, these are a bunch of men that want you to be helped. They want you to move beyond what holds you back, because that's how the greatest healing has the potential to happen at times. So yeah, don't take it all on ourselves. Like, reach out to somebody who you can trust, and again, that's what this is for. And that's what we're hoping to achieve here, I feel like.
Oh, I'd like to share something on that, brothers. It's okay. Can I be heard?
Absolutely.
Yes.
All right. So, first I want to say happy birthday, belated birthday to Brandon. I think your birthday was like the 10th, the 11th.
Oh, yes. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Happy birthday, brother. Dude, celebrating you. And then, all right, right now I'm in the desert. I got cut off a minute ago because thank God I have two phones. My other phone literally overheated. I've never had that happen before. As Zissis was asking a question, the phone just said, I'm too hot, and it cut off on me. So this has been a week for me of, I'm broke down in the desert, right? So I'm here probably till Monday. I'm at the mechanic's place. They let me stay here because I'm like van life in it until this next project starts. And it is hot. And so what I've been experiencing is, often for many of us, even if we're carrying that old school pride that we were speaking to, there's a way that life can humble us and break us down. I'm feeling it right now. Like, it's so hot outside. It's about 117. I'm by the ocean kind of guy. It's so hot right now that I'm just finding myself having to surrender to the heat. And I'm in the shade and it's hot, but my body feels weaker. But I'm here and I'm just breathing with it, and just like, this body, I'm here, be with me, allow me to acclimate. That reaching out to the divine, as Brandon was speaking about, I find myself praying a little bit more, just in recognizing what I'm feeling. And so it's not an easy thing. I think for me, in the past to ask for help, but what I'm coming to recognize is that the help and the support is actually always there. And so the benefit of us coming together, the benefit of being able to reach out, even in the most minute way, is that you begin to see the providence that is surrounding us, the abundance, the willingness of the universe to say, oh, you're looking for some help. Open your eyes just a little bit more, look in that direction, and the help is there. I've had so many beautiful people assist me this week, and I've been received in a beautiful way. And often, like Zissis, when we were talking before, you said, "Oh, well, it's your vibe," and I'm like, "Yeah, but my vibe, I don't feel like my vibe was in the best place, but I'll take that as well." But I also feel like I was being taught a lesson because we're in a. Sorry for the noise. I'm by the road. It's a big truck. There's a tendency during times like this to still, even though you want to pull people together, you have your guard up and you're divided. And so many of the people who I would have least likely expected to assist me came through and they helped me beautifully. And it was humbling to my heart because I realized how guarded I was, even in thinking I wasn't guarded. And also how vulnerable I am. But in that vulnerability, there's a strength in just being able to receive and to say, okay, this is where I'm at. So my, I guess, idea or what I want to express to the viewers is the great thing about us coming together like this is we can also just help to assess where am I at. Sometimes I need someone else to show me where I'm at. My wife tells me, as you're up in the sequoias, you're running around, but you're never still. Yes, you're in nature all the time. And I was like, oh, whatever, I'm still. But then I was like, you know what? Maybe it's good that I broke down. The vehicle broke down, and maybe it was time for me to have a physical breakdown and just cry and release and have that time with the trees. And so I did that. I took a walk and I had a beautiful meditation. And then the next day things shifted. Now I get, assisted in whatever ways. I get down to this mechanical place. These guys are like, oh, sorry, man, we can't help you till maybe Monday. It's okay. But they're like, the owner of the shop actually said, you can come by my place and have a beer you want, but I'm going out of town. And I was like, that's really nice. And they just let me stay, allowed me to stay at the shop. So I'm parked up, set up in the shop. It's hot as all type of people genitals right now. But so what? At least I'm safe and it's beautiful. And it's been a really beautiful experience. But the lesson of the experience for me has been, coming into the awareness of where I'm at, not being in too much resistance, which is obviously, the incorporation of what we learned from the feminine, and then allowing and receiving and recognizing that there is help. There is help even in the phone call and the joy that a brother can bring to you in just a conversation, because then you don't feel alone. There's help in this camaraderie that we get to share. There's help in the kindness of, there's a Mexican restaurant next to me named Oasis. And so it's it's appropriate, because they've been being so good to me. I've been sipping on some hibiscus iced tea. I don't think I've ever had hibiscus. I usually drink it warm. Delicious. It's carrying me right now. So I love you, brothers. I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Beautiful sharing. Thank you. That's nourishment. Thank you.
Hello. I'm going to say some words now. Getting dark very quick, but I'll turn the brightness up. So, oh my God, I've been storing things up to say, and then when the time comes, it kind of goes, doesn't it? Yeah, I wanted to say, Seth, with what you said before, it's kind of proven that you are that intelligence that you're on about, that beats your heart and the rest of it, by the fact that your breathing is voluntary and involuntary at the same time. So it's like your heartbeat is just involuntary, it just keeps on beating. But it shows that you, whoever you are, you have control to breathe however you want. But if you don't, if you forget, you're just going to keep on breathing anyway. And that's who you are. There's two aspects. And then I was thinking about my story is that I was ready. So we were talking earlier about the divine masculine not really stepping up, and the women being where are all the men? I don't feel safe. I don't feel secure. Where are they all? And I know in myself that like I've been ready for quite a while. I was just like looking for a guide. And I know I could have, hypothetically speaking, if like I started this journey with Jen a little bit earlier and we actually met each other like 4 years ago, and I could have like, yeah, I wouldn't have had resistance to those lessons. And I know there's loads of men out there just like that, and they kind of like end up feeling a little bit alone and a little bit like maybe like, you know, a little bit angry that the woman hasn't seen them. But like the men are the bees, aren't they? So we've just got to keep on going back for more and more pollen and keep on diving in and taking those risks. And then, so I think Brandon, you were talking about, or maybe it was Zissis, about having a feeling, and then yeah, you got this feeling in, and then you didn't know what it was, and it took you a while to get your head around it. So then, like, that's like the masculine job, is putting a name to that emotion and finding exactly like why it happened, and then how do I not do that again? I feel like that's kind of the man's job. But the feeling came first, didn't it? It's just like Ezyriah, when your wife's told you like you need to just be still, and then because she told you that, like she acted in the masculine role there because she put words to your feelings, and then you were able to manifest this experience of being broken down in the desert. It looks like it's going very well. Sounds cool. So yeah, that's my little tuppence. Thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah. You know, I think what I'm getting also from this gathering is that camaraderie, you know, there's things that in a way only men can understand about men. If there was a woman here, it would totally change just the vibe, just because their whole relationship to the world is different than ours. And, you know, I think men tend to feel alone a lot, where women, maybe it's easier to come together, but coming together in as men with men to talk about, you know, the vulnerability and not being judged for that is it's nourishing. And I think women don't understand that part of men, and we don't understand that part of women either. I mean, I have to say, you know, it's totally different psychologies, but because we're all different sort of men, but I can understand each of what all of us are saying as that, let's say, category as a man, and that's reassuring that we're not just alone in the world fighting the world because we're warriors of light or justice or this. We can connect and empower each other. You know, just what as Ezyriah said about his, you know, that was beautiful, being alone, being still, and manifesting this thing to bring you into that, and being able to share it with people who understand you. Just for that, I felt I was there in the desert with you, and seeking that oasis and seeking that sense of self, because we've all been there. So I do love sharing on that level to give me power to be in the world as more of who I am, whatever that is. But thank you. Thank you.
Could I share something else, brothers? You know, there's a way that I view my partner, and there's something that and we spoke to the Zissis the other day too. What I've been trying to cultivate on this journey, from the point that I was deciding, okay, I'm going to push off suicide till later, was like really getting a feel for what it is to be alive. And the main thing that I was battling quite a few things, but one of the things was like connecting with my intuition so that I can discern. Feeling like I'm out in the world, I don't know what the hell's going on. I don't know who I can depend on. I'm used to a team, but now I'm alone, and coming to this place where I can decipher between loneliness and that emotion and then a solitude. Being able to enter a solitude and come out with something versus, you know, the sad feelings of loneliness that can make you feel so separate from everybody. And, you know, as kids, a lot of us, we're put on a sports team, or we do this, and then we come out, and if, let's say if you don't go into the military or move on with another team, you don't have this mission. We're raised with a bit of a mission objective at our youth, and then we lose that, and then we're off in the world, and you don't have your team, you don't know who's got your back. Fortunately for me, I was able to, you know, take work. I fell away from such group activities, but then when I was working with the military, it was kind of mission objective. So you would have people that you really felt they had your back, which was a good feeling. And then to come out of that and get back into the world again was like, whoa, you know, it's different. And again, I'm a civilian, so this was just as a contractor, right? And it's like, it's really beautiful for us as men to begin to bridge these gaps and to speak to it. Most of my journey was first seeking rites of passage and then creating my own rites of passage. And so I see these situations where I'm in the desert, you know, with like the biblical Jesus was in the desert, or like we all, the alchemist, there is a desert situation for all of us. And being able to say, okay, I'm in a moment of solitude and there's a lesson that I'm going to take from here. And so I feel that a lot of our brothers, you know, may not have that, the situation set up to connect the dots. And I think this is what we bring to the table, is the dots have been connected by bringing us together. And therefore now we can bring this awareness to our brothers that, hey, these things that you're going through in life, you may have actually written into your story. Therefore, there's a power that you have, you know, in all of these trials that may open up the door for a greater version of you. Let's get there together, because the intimacy part for me is I want to witness you in that greatness. But also, it also inspires me to know that I can attain to something else on the journey. And I can do it as a full range human being, not in the old machismo of like, sorry for the cars again, the old machismo of like, I got this by myself because I've already put that to the test and I definitely don't got it on my own. You know, I can get through some things, I can work on a car, I can suffer, I've got perseverance and discipline, and I take the opportunities to cultivate that. But at the same time, I break, you know, and I need help, whether it's from a woman or from a man, but from human beings, because this is who we are as part of the lessons. And so when my wife told me, you spend that time away, when she gives me an insight, I'm actually looking, especially if my ego's down, I'm looking for something from her because I consider her an oracle. So I don't think she's grasping it yet, but I'm like, you're my oracle, baby. And she's like, oh, whatever. I'm like, yeah. So, and I'll go back and think, even if we have an argument, I go back and I mull over the stuff, because I feel like, because whether she recognizes it or not, I know she does, there's a way that she is connected. And this is what we're speaking to. This is what Seth was speaking to, you know, as well. And also just recognizing even Michael, the feminine's connected. And so I'd like to benefit from that connection and honor it. But also I'd like to cultivate that within myself for the sake of my brothers. And I feel like this group of men, and I've been running into a lot of men who are doing so. And so our sisters are asking for men to grow in this way. And there's a part of a situation when things look dire where you don't realize they've already started to turn around. And this is what I've been dancing with recently. And so we are the ones, we recognize things are turning around because we're witnessing this within ourselves. And so if you're, you know, part of the divine feminine who's observing and watching this, things are turning around. And for our brothers, we're here for you. Things are turning around. So perhaps we can be of good cheer, and yeah, let's do the work. But I feel like we're moving up. And that's what I wanted to speak to. Oh, brothers.
Oh, Raya, beautifully said.
Aloha.
Beautifully said.
And long-winded too, my bad.
No, it's exactly winded. So there's an embodiment and a power within what you said. And that's really what our brothers need to be aware of. This, you know, I've certainly felt it in my lives where, you know, that whole, old machismo way of saying, I can endure anything, I can carry the world on my back, I don't need anybody else, I don't need to connect. And that's a fallacy. No man is an island, as the aphorism says. And relying on fellow brothers and sisters where there is capacity to be held. That's the important part. So yeah, thank you.
And I appreciate what each and every one of us do in these beautiful sacred moments, because I feel the biggest medicine for all of us, for those that are watching, and for our sacred masculine, is to be heard with love. And really, what I hear from my divine partner is, when is a man going to speak through their hearts and really express their love as we are doing for each other, and honoring one another and celebrating one another and holding each other in the divinity that we are? And it's such a gift that we each share our unique stories, our experiences, but most important, our openness to be held, our openness to be comforted, but most important, the openness to receive the love that naturally flows through us in this beautiful space. Because I know it touches my heart. And as each one of you sacred men speak, I can feel that go into my heart, and I can feel it radiate outward. And I feel, being around women my whole life, a lot of times I kept hearing over and over, when are men going to speak and be from their hearts, from their divine hearts, and lead from that way? And I believe we are opening this opportunity for other beautiful men and women to see, by being in this sacred space, wholeheartedly listening to each other with the highest level of respect and honor, paves the road for what's to come, which I'm very grateful to each and every one of you for sharing the beautiful love and light that so naturally shines through you. So thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Michael. I hope. There's a theme that started developing, and it's just too grand a theme right now to get into it, but we can probably skirt around the issue. And that's the theme of sexual union that Brendan had brought up and Alan had brought up regarding, because that is the culmination of the senses coming down into the spiritual domain. And far too many of us as men don't understand that sacredness. So I think we'll probably devote a whole transmission on the sacredness of sexual union and the power of sexual union. And if any of the viewers have specific topics that we'd like to touch on, I open it and we'll put it in the comment sections and in any of the transmissions that are being sent, either through Seth, through Alan, through myself, and through any of the guys. Because this is the last part in healing the divine feminine and masculine within the union aspect of it. And not a lot of work has been done in that, and misunderstood, quite frankly. The sexual power is the most powerful creative force on this planet. And with what's being done and what I've seen, it's just taken for granted, and it's just kind of thrown away by the dustbin, and it's distorted, greatly distorted. And that has to come back into the divine that it is. I'd love for any of you guys to share in what I just said right now. I'd love to hear what you said.
I think there's a subtlety that most aren't aware of when it comes to their sexual expression. And that subtlety is, where in me is this coming from? So there is this bliss when it's a divine union, when two people are aligned with each other in the cosmos and their hearts and souls come together. There's just this wonderful expansion that occurs. And I've had amazing Kundalini experiences with partners who I was aligned with. But then there's this other place, this primal place that comes through, especially as a male. And it's more of that lower base chakra that pulls you to someone. Mm-hmm. And if you act from that space and that space alone, there's a tendency to be more objectifying of the person of your observation. You're objectifying that other person, and you're acting from that primal place. Because when you let go of that, it's like I've observed myself doing that, and then I get realigned with myself, my heart, and my that greater part of myself, and I observe it again, and I see all the other things that I wasn't bringing into my awareness when I bring that back up to my heart. And so it's this merging of those two places that need to occur. And so when I run this through that divine center, and then I look again, it's like, no, this would be bad for both of you. No, this is not aligned. No, this person maybe is a bit more toxic in this other way. Or sometimes it doesn't even really make any sense, right? So I was dating somebody for a while, and I noticed after that we slept together. It was mutual, it was consensual. Every part of my being felt it was wrong. I felt like I cheated on somebody. I felt like, what is going on here? I feel horrible about this. And on the surface, there was nothing wrong with that, but there was all those other things that I wasn't seeing. So when I brought this back into myself, I'm like, okay, well, we need to end this part of the relationship. We need to bring this back, and I need to honor that. And when I did that, shortly after that, I met this other person who I didn't know exactly what was coming, and I was kind of waiting for in a way. And we didn't stay together, but it was a beautiful learning and healing relationship that my soul was calling out for. So you're not always going to recognize what's going to be in alignment or out of alignment just based on consent. And in that regard, like when you're expressing outwards and you see these things that kind of seem to be inviting, where are those places that you are not seeing in that other when you run that into your own divinity? I think that's the key that I was trying to get at before, is like running that place within you and seeing where it lands truly, not acting on impulse or instinct or primal drives, because there is room for everything that you're desiring. But when you do it in an aligned way, it's much more healthy. It creates room for magic. It creates room for this unbelievable places that you wouldn't get to otherwise.
Amazing.
Oh, brother, that's amazing. Yes.
I think what you said just touched upon the complexity of who we are. We have these animal bodies, we have these human emotions, and we have this divine connection. So do we act from the animal and make women into animals as well, objectify them, or do we, try to integrate all three or more aspects of ourselves and meet the other on that level? And I think meeting someone on those three levels, it's not as easy as the society makes it out to be in some romantic fantasy. And maybe it is easy. I don't know. It hasn't been my experience, but I think what you said, Brandon, dropping into ourselves and feeling if it's right, even if the other person's available, and then we know if something's right or not, and we have to trust that feeling, no matter what it looks like. That's a good reminder for me. So. Thank you. When it's right, then it lines up on all those levels, I think. And it happens. Yeah.
Oh, I feel like it speaks to another level of embodiment. For me, even it wasn't until I was maybe 36 that I actually listened to my body in terms of, like, as Brandon was speaking to, like connecting with someone and then seeing what you felt afterwards and honoring it, as opposed to saying, yo, it was good. We just hooked up. All right. Next time, let's keep it going. But feeling like something is really wrong here, and stepping away and really thinking to it, and then expressing that to the person that I was with, which didn't go over well, but I felt like, wow, I'm walking in a new level of integrity with myself that carried over. That there's no way I'd be in the relationship with the person that I'm with now had I not listened to that. And it also has helped me to honor and gain insight as to what may be going on with other people, with, you know, partner wise, when they have a feeling of something that they want to wait on. It opens up the door for discussion because I'm aware of what that feels like within myself, and I'll honor it for me. So I'm not going to betray that for you. I want to honor that and have that dialogue and that communication. And just as you said, like, it opens up the door for something really beautiful when you can see each other and meet each other in that way. So one question that I've been thinking of, I know most of our conversation is like going to tend to be like heteronormative. I'd like to hear from more of the communities that identify not as heterosexual, but who are still navigating the term union, and see and listen to how they're navigating that aspect of their relationships too. And I don't know if our viewer audience is composed of more people in that who categorize in that way, you know, but I would love to hear and gain insights as to how they're navigating these terms, who are they're often presented in such a heteronormative way, even though we're speaking to energy and like revering each other. So I just putting that out there. And I will mute my mic before a big truck passes by again.
Yeah, I think to your point, Ezyriah, my sense is a lot of the, whether it's heteronormative or whether it's same sex, whatever that is, there's always an energetic polarity in some way from a dualistic perspective. You know, the broader, the further the polarity in what that is, you know, masculine, feminine, you know, gender roles, whatever that is, the further apart it is, the greater the sexual tension, right? And that creates the passion associated with you know, sexual release or sexual tension, as it were. So that's just my understanding. Certainly, I would welcome all to comment on, as you say.
In my sacred divine union, in which has been a very huge journey in my own sexuality, because I will be honest, I was brought up in a very alpha male, where pornography, where a lot of toxic energies were brought to me, and where I learned sexuality in the most vulgar wrongdoing possible, because I thought that was normal in what society has brought up. And it's been an amazing journey to finally be with someone that is from the furthest of that, and to really show me and teach me the mysteries from Magdalene, from Yeshua, of really what sacred sexuality is, that I'm still learning, remembering, and applying, as she expresses that it is our divine connection to source when the sacred masculine and the sacred feminine come into union, that brings an infinite power within us in our creativity to explore the unspeakable, to explore words that we can't even express, because it's such an ecstasy behind the orgasm that we are transcended to places that allow us to see the full godhood and goddess within ourselves. And I feel it's a very healthy discussion to look at the infinite possibility of that realm, and to really educate our fellow brothers and sisters of the limitations of what the old paradigms of our society, of our music, of our entertainment has conditioned with us within the sexuality, which we can't say is right or wrong, good or bad, because it's just an old paradigm that we're moving from to a higher vibration of light that we are. And it's an amazing, what I find, journey that we can open this up for people to really share, as intimate as it is, what it is to be in that. Because I know within my own partner, of a being that goes beyond any divine feminine I've ever met in my life, my personal journey, that is how she lives and breathes and places herself within that. So if I bring any of my old programs or any of my areas of what I feel I need for myself, it's called out immediately so that it can educate me. And then I can share that with my brothers in the humility that there are still old parts of me that are winding off because of what was taught to me at a very young age. And I feel it's healthy that we we talk about that because it can be an addiction. It can be a manhood where we thrive off of that energy, but be very transparent that even those in a realm that want to bring the awareness to that we have felt that, and to bring the forgiveness and to bring the light and to bring the love, that it is okay to go through that because that was the story that was brought to us. And now we're helping transmute that through the active awareness and the consciousness that we're sharing together. So I appreciate this, and always my antennas are always open to listen to all of you so I can find greater guidance, because I know I'm still learning and experiencing it from a man that had so much, I would say, conditioning of that alpha nature of what old sexuality was.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. I think that I'm interested in doing a deep dive on that, in that way, so we can explore a little bit more the sacredness of sexuality and old programming and where it's being transmuted now, and what we need to do as men in order to firmly anchor this sacred sexuality. So I think a lot has been said. I don't know about you guys, but I'm really feeling the depth of what was discussed today in an incredible way. I want to honor you, for all of you, for your openness and your ability to go into those places and to share. We were at an hour and 34 minutes. I want to offer closing comments and anything that needs to be said, and then I'd like to close it off for this particular roundtable, and we'll come back again in 2 weeks. So who would like to lead off the closing sessions?
May I say something?
Of course, David.
This kind of piggybacks a little bit on the sacred sexuality, which I agree with you. It's a whole another deep dive that we'll have to explore much more, and I welcome that. I think that I just wanted to add to tie in some of the sexuality conversation that's been brought forth so far. The biggest difference that I see between women's sexuality and men's sexuality, not feminine, masculine, is that women are much more involved in developing a connection, and men are much more involved in developing an orgasm. And so when we talk about sexuality as men, and we're thinking, well, this is an orgasmic experience, I believe that we're in an old paradigm. When we bring sexuality to mean it's a connection that, together with blending our divine masculine in balance, we create a caduceus that brings energy up into the Godhead, where we can bring more of that divinity down into our physical bodies and be more of the divine gods and goddesses that we're meant to be, then that's a different expression of sexuality. Now, if you were to watch both of these experiences of sexuality, they might look the same or they might look similar, but they're completely different. And so I wanted to put out there that when our intent is to come together to experience the highest rapture of divinity in a physical body, and part of the technique is to be chakra to chakra lined up with our beloved. And Ezyriah, to get to your question, it doesn't matter if it's heterocentric or not. What I'm talking about is chakra to chakra experience. And so that type of connection can be shared with any two people. So when our coupling becomes of that nature, and it just so happens when our chakras are aligned, that our genitalia is also aligned, and it becomes a more sexual expression, then it looks like sexuality, but to me is more of a tantric connection that creates that connection to divinity. Yeah. And we can, like I said, we could go into this for hours and hours, but I think it's important for us as men to put that out there, that to get into sacred sexuality to me means putting a lot of our old paradigms, Michael, that you spoke of, set them aside and talk about what the real intent of sexual union happens to be. And then there's a whole big mystery out there that we can explore. So thank you, my brothers.
Oh, thank you so much for speaking to that. I'm excited to learn more and to, you know, navigate that and to have these discussions as men. I really appreciate how you articulated that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ezyriah.
I think the sacred sexuality can still be orgasmic.
Absolutely.
So from my experience in that type of unit, it's very orgasmic, it's very blissful, but it's not the drive to the finish line, and that's the difference.
Yeah.
It's the being present in the fullness of that experience and what it has to offer. And sometimes, and I've had experiences where it was just unexpected and amazing, but wasn't really planned. It was just the opening of both of our chakras together. One time, her Kundalini came in through my root, and it was whipping my body up and down. It was like, I was laughing, but it felt blissful at the same time. But it was that openness to the union in that way that led to that experience. And it wasn't anything about finishing at all. It was just being fully present with one another.
Beautiful. Well said.
Sometimes, fellas, you've just got to blow your load, haven't you? Excuse me. You feel that pent up energy, and you know that if you do it, you're going to feel better after it. And Michael, you were saying about, I loved what you said. There was one thing that I wasn't too sure about, and it was about not being able to identify like between right and wrong, or that maybe it's okay because it happened. But after studying, like, for example, the rap music industry, like, you've got Eminem lyrics that I've listened to Eminem when I was younger, and he's talking so quick that I wasn't able to like consciously acknowledge it. But he's got lyrics of like doing stuff with Elton John and admitting that he's gay and that he got his job by doing dodgy sexual things. So that's wrong, and that's why I think that when we get that urge to just finish, then we've we're able to do it without getting any karma back, because it's been very tough on planet Earth. And when I don't know what your name is, but Catalyst for Change, when you were speaking, very wise words, and it sounded amazing, and we can definitely like strive to reach that sacred sexuality, but we've also got to acknowledge where we're at. I think as men we can learn about that concept, and then when we end up having to, because we do have to cave, and when we just want to finish sometimes, then we can like beat ourselves up about it. So it's important not to allow that guilt in, keep on feeding. And I also got the visual of the chakras lined up, and if it was two men, there'd be a collision, guys. There would. So yeah, it'd be very interesting to explore this, especially like the heterosexuality and whatnot.
I think
Thank you.
There's one thing I'd like to, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, it's right.
Well, another thing that I've journeyed with where we're talking about sacred union is actually the sacred connection to yourself as a man. And so, which then for me has permeated into everything else that I do. Like when we discuss, that part about not finishing or finishing and not guilting yourself, I agree. It's good to start with where you're at. But for me, starting with where I was at, I had to start from scratch again, which involves releasing old paradigms, but also recognizing, hey, do I have a sacred connection to myself as a man? What does that look like? One of the things that I took from the feminine was them beginning to explore, getting just a little insight as to what was going on in their groups, not having to do this in a group with other men, but even though that's going on as well, but like actually exploring my own body, getting to know myself and feeling a sacredness and gratitude for what I can make myself feel. getting to know myself to that level, to where I'm at the point now I would have to show another woman how to make me feel as good as I can make me feel, which is, it's not a boastful thing, but it's like, wow, I have that experience with myself, so I don't have to outsource. But then I can bring that to the relationship, and then I can also be receptive to, you know, my partner saying, hey, I want to show you this. I'm like, cool, I got something to show you too. Let's trade secrets. Yeah. But like, us together. And so I think a very important thing to mention in terms of us navigating discussion on sacred union is that sacred experience with yourself as a man, and cultivating that, because you will bring that into whatever you do. This is even my desert journey is a sacred journey, because I know that there's more beneath the surface, and there's an intimacy being cultivated with life in and of itself through these, you know, through this. And so it's not me getting back to Santa Clarita. Now I've dropped into the journey, to the, you know, so my sexual experience is also an experience of this part of the journey. And I feel like there's a connection. Again, I'm no expert on any of this, but this is just my experience that I'm navigating currently.
Beautiful.
And I wanted to share that. Thank you.
Well said.
Oh, brothers.
You know, I don't think we really, or maybe it's me I'm talking about, really know the depth of what sexuality can encompass, real sexual. I mean, I've had one experience where I was in this woman who I had a great relationship and connection. I was in her for about an hour or more. We were just not the pornographic stuff, you like the bam, 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 but just inside. And because there was someone in the next bed, we didn't want to make a lot of noise or movement. So I was just inside for I don't know how long, but at one point she stuck her tongue in my mouth, and it created a lightning bolt that made that connection go through my whole body. And that was just a magical experience. I never had that again, but I know what's and even beyond that. So, you know, we need to be in better relationship, I think, with ourselves, with the women, and agree that there's a depth of sexuality that most people, even in Tantra, all that pseudo Tantra, they never explore what's possible within our own physiology, because it's connected to the heart and mind too, I think. So anyway, thanks. This has been a great opportunity to explore with other explorers. And thanks.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Well, that completes this Divine Union Roundtable. So thank you for everyone, or Divine Masculine Roundtable. Thank you for exploring.
I'd like to touch on one thing real quick, if I could.
Yeah, please.
It just kind of seemed important, and it's regarding the urge. When you have that urge that comes up, like I just want to release, I just want that to finish. For me, it was very important, because I had a lot of that, and it was very important to recognize where this was coming from, because for me it led to a pornography addiction, because I always had this urge, and I would do it when I was stressed, I would do it when I was overwhelmed, I would do it when like the energy was so heightened that I didn't know what to do with it. So I was going back to this need to release, and it just, and I did it with pornography, and it just kept bringing me back to it. So it led to my addiction. And so I started examining where this urge was coming from. And there was a lot of places that I looked at that really had nothing to do with that at all. It was sometimes the escape of the stress, the escape of this other thing, the not wanting to deal with this thing. So it's really important, if you are dealing with urges in that way, to really examine the root of that, so that we can come from that healthy space.
And also pull the energy up, right? You know,
Exactly.
The Taoist work, which is very powerful. I have more energy pulling it up than out.
Oh, yeah.
If you can train yourself, yeah.
And to know that even within sexual sacred union, there doesn't even have to be penetration. Look at every single act of our expression together that can go beyond than just the normal level of what we call penetration. We can look at it in such an intimate way, from just eyesight, from holding a hand, from heart to heart. There's so much in richness. And I love what you said, Alan, all of you guys, what you said, but I really find there's such a level that we don't know. And that this is a great discussion for us just to share the areas that are open for us to expand, because I feel it's a healthy discussion really to bring forth to the table, to bring our respect, our honor, and our celebration, because it is, as we know, our most creative energy. And that's what I feel, what I've learned from the masters is they utilize this energy for some of the greatest, most powerful manifestations, abundance, prosperity. So it's such a beautiful conversation. And so I just wanted to share that the acts of it, there's such a flourishment that we can really dive in by our unique experiences. So thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
We just started these conversations and already I feel it going really, really deep. I mean, I'm really excited about the next transmission we have. So
hold that energy, pull it up. Let's
That's absolutely correct, Alan. So to close off, I want to thank everyone again for their openness and their sharing. Thank you again for your time. I love you all. And we will meet again in 2 weeks to talk about sacred sexuality and the mysteries and what we don't know. Bye for now.
All right.
Aloha, brothers. Love you guys.
Aloha. Good to see Michael again.
See you.